opinions and our right to pursue our happiness as our Creator intended, A Neighbor's Choice returns. We're on the broadcast airwaves live, and they can't censor FM and AM. Not yet, at least. I'm sure those little corporate communist stooges would love to get their nasty little hands on radio airwaves and try to control them as they try to control the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube ghettos that they've created to silo off thought and try to conform it to old, outdated, stinky ideas that belong in the ash heap of history. Things like tyranny, things like having corporate communism be the only option we can have for discussing opinions and ideas. It's just not going to be acceptable for the future. We're joined by Heather Wilson of GiveSendGo.com. She has experienced an attempt by these bullies, these corporatists, and their oligarchic structures of business. In the case here with Discover, I've never seen Discover, but so Discover has tried to censor, or they've tried to stop payment, but they didn't understand how your model works. So it sounds like, Heather, they were trying to get some marketing PR. They wanted to get some good press with the cult of the social justice movement, right?
You know, I think they were being bullied. We saw a lot of people bullying us when we first, on every side, you know, people not understanding how a free Christian platform would allow this campaign. And I think it's because people misunderstand freedom and what justice looks like. And so I think that Facebook and our processor and Discover, they all got thousands, just like we did, thousands of emails and calls and hate mail and how can you let this going on? And I think they bowed into the pressure. And I can see why companies say, I don't want to take a stand on anything, because it's scary, the amount of hate you get, no matter what side you're on. You know, we say we're a platform of diversity. You know, we are just a platform that allows freedom, because we know the freedom we have in Christ. And so we say, we're going to offer this platform if you want to raise money. And people they don't know what to do with freedom. And so just like with Discover, they got enough pressure, Facebook enough pressure, that they said, you know, let's just bury our heads for this. And in doing that, you make your own stand. You know, you can't just be neutral. You're making a stand. And so, that's what Discover did. I think they bowed to the pressure of, you know, we got thousands and thousands of hate emails. And then when we go to respond, most of them are fake emails. Mm-hmm. So you got a lot of these fingertip warriors sitting at their computer with nothing else to do. I was telling my brother and partner, Jacob, that, you know, I go on LinkedIn and I might have one or two like people reaching out to me, finding out what's going on. But most people on LinkedIn are working. Mm-hmm. So they don't have time to send me thousands of hate mail, you know, and so you get this overwhelming feeling that everybody's against you. But in reality, a lot of it is just people with too much time on their hands and a lot of hate in their hearts. And you know what, as GiveSendGo, you know, being a free Christian platform, we say we want to show mercy and grace to those people as well, because they don't know. Yeah. They don't understand. They're blinded. They really are.
So how do you guys fund your operations? Do you take a small portion of whatever's raised, or how does that work?
Sure. So when we first started GiveSendGo, we had thought, you know, GoFundMe was charging 5%. We thought we'll come in right underneath GoFundMe, and so that we're, you know, a little competitive being the new guy. And then as we got, you know, a couple months in, we really felt like God was telling us that we should go to be this free platform. And we were like, well, that's not a really good business model. Being free, you know, we have to keep the bills paid and the servers up. And it became a lesson in obedience for us to say, okay, God, we're going to obey you. So what we did is we opened up our platform to being a platform where when somebody gave, when a giver comes to a campaign on GiveSendGo, they have the option, they type in how much they're going to give to the campaign, but then they have the option of also donating something to us if they want. They don't have to, they can. And so there's like an optional button that can give us a little donation. We realize that the givers are the ones that have the money to give. The people raising the money, we wanted to make the lowest cost possible for them to receive all the money that they're raising.
Mhm.
You know, there are processing fees that our processors charge that don't come to us. It's just a part of, you know, anybody who collects credit cards online know about that. But we said we don't want to add to that because obviously the person raising the money needs the money.
Mhm.
The givers are the ones coming to fund these adventures and situations. And so, you know, let's give them the opportunity that if they have a little extra to give and they want to support us, they can. And so that's how we've been. It was a total step of obedience and you know, it's working. And now GoFundMe does it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a great model you've built. GiveSendGo.com is the website. And I just had to make a comment about what Christians should do. You know, I don't know the particulars of this case. I kind of stay out of these things when they're happening and just to see what happens. I don't like to make a political statement when the facts haven't all come out. But I'll say this. The word for Holy Spirit in the New Testament is paraclete, which means defense attorney. If there's one thing about Christianity that has made an impact in our society around the world, it's that we defend those who've been accused by a mob. We defend them and we give them a right to a fair trial, and they're presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so there is nothing more Christian than standing in the middle between a violent, angry mob filled with an accusatory spirit and someone who's been accused of something. And so I think that that's very in keeping with the Christian spirit. We should also practice nonviolence, non-aggression, and non-vengeance, but protecting those who've been accused by a mob is central to the Christian story. So thanks, Heather, for what you're doing at GiveSendGo.com for providing a place, a free place for people to raise funds and standing on the side of diversity of thought. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
GiveSendGo.com. Back in just a moment.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going off.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
At the White House today, President Trump releasing his pre-election list of 20 potential Supreme Court nominees, but the president also having to address his interview with Bob Woodward's new book, saying that he wanted to play down the threat of the coronavirus early on in the pandemic. The president saying today he, quote, certainly did, but only in the best interests of Americans.
You cannot show a sense of panic or you're going to have bigger problems than you ever had before.
Rival Joe Biden on the campaign trail today in Michigan says that the president's actions cost Americans lives and jobs.
He had the information. He knew how dangerous it was. And while this deadly disease ripped through our nation, he failed to do his job on purpose.
New York's governor announcing today that New York City restaurants can reopen indoor dining at the end of September with 25% capacity limits and temperature checks in place. And on Wall Street, stocks closing up today, making up some of the losses from the past few days of trading. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. We're flying high across the Sunshine State on FM and AM, also on our podcast. If you're watching on video on Facebook or YouTube, you may have a difficult time finding us. The scared robots that they use there to try to push their stinky, outdated, brutish ideas are desperate to try to keep the real media from arising, and it's a lost cause for them. They're not going to win. They're losing so badly. They're scared out of their minds. They're the Darth Vader characters in all the movies that we watched as children, and they're losing. But you can still find us on Facebook or YouTube for now. You can find us on our podcast, David Gronowski Podcast. Search for it there. You can also, go to our website, aneighborschoice.com, and that should be the main place to go to for finding our content. And so joining me now, we talk a lot about economics on this program, and I think it's important to understand economics if we're going to have a sustainable future for generations to come after us. Joining me now is someone who has developed his own theory for economics. He calls it divine economy theory. Bruce Koerber. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the program. You reached out to me about you've got a new book coming out, so we can talk about it. And you've told me that you've created a theory called divine economy. And I thought that's an interesting idea, so I wanted to have you on to learn a little bit about what your idea is. Tell us a little bit about divine economic theory.
Divine economy theory, yeah, that's what I call it. I'm an economist in the classical liberalism tradition, and I was trained in Austrian economics at Auburn in late 1980s. And it was shortly after the Mises Institute established itself there as the home for the world center for Austrian economics. And so I discovered it. It became a passion in my life, and I did some teaching. Mostly I was doing other things, but I was reading all the time in the literature and of the Austrian tradition and the classical liberalism tradition. So that's where the origin came. And then in 2004, I had a dream, and a model appeared, an image appeared in my dream, and then I just developed that image first into a macro model, and then into a micro model, then into an ethical economics model, and then into an economic justice model.
Well, very good. So tell us a little bit about, for those who are not familiar with economics, just tell us what's distinct about your idea. You've got the word divine in it. So where does that come from?
Well, it's not much different from the idea of laissez-faire, which is, implies the invisible hand. It's an intellectual argument that, leaving things alone will make things, better, and there's reasons for it because there's no way a human mind can understand all the choices that are being made all around the world instantaneously. So if you would just intellectually make that argument that if you think that you can understand that then you're flawed, you're going to make errors, and it's going to have implications and bad outcomes. So that's basically the laissez-faire approach, which is an intellectual. This one takes it to a little bit different level. The divine economy theory is along the same lines. Like I said, it's in the tradition of classical liberalism. It goes beyond that by saying that really it's part of providence, that it's an institution, just like humans. I don't know what your audience's beliefs are, but the idea that God created humans, in His image, that we have the capacity to know, to love, to search. We have all those gifts that were given to us, and those are ours as individuals, and we're all unique in how we express those. But there's also a part of that same providence was establishing a means, because economics is the study of the means to attain the ends, and the means is this system that's a spontaneous order that exists, and that drives humans to want to cooperate with one another because everyone benefits from that. I mean, it's just it doesn't have to be created by humans to cooperate. They just know that. They see the fruits of it when they do it. I mean, it's there. It exists, and when they practice it, they benefit. And so that's the providence that's behind it all. And that's a gift. It's just part of the creation from the very beginning.
Kind of like how bees coordinate actions and ants coordinate actions and humans create economies, right? That's what you're kind of getting at. So, why do you think we have so much stagnation? Why are we, they say we've had stagnation in wages. We're not creating stuff anymore. We're not producing stuff anymore. We've become a McDonald's economy where we're service-based. We're dealing with things like, this massive college debt. We've got massive healthcare debt, lack of innovation. We've had a war on cancer since the 60s with Nixon. We don't make things anymore. Where do you think all of this is coming from an economic perspective?
Well, that's one of the beauties of the divine economy model that's at the core of the divine economy theory. It actually is a visual. You can actually see what the economy looks like. And to answer your question, the model itself, the very original model, this macroeconomic model, is a 5-dimensional model. And one of those dimensions is this axis that runs through. And that's the axis of the nature and role of knowledge, and it has the potential of spinning infinitely fast, and stretching. So, basically, what that is, that's what the flow of knowledge, and when that is interfered with, the economy, there's consequences in the economy, and so you probably have heard the term interventionism. That's basically not any different than what I was talking about with laissez-faire, hands off, because when a human mind, which has limitations, tries to comprehend what it cannot comprehend, the economy is infinitely greater than any human comprehension. So as soon as a human then imposes their limited understanding on it, what it actually does, it prevents the flow of knowledge, and then the role of knowledge is impeded. So that's what we see. We see intervention after intervention after intervention, and every one of those things restricts, constrains, distorts the flow of knowledge. So the role of knowledge can't play its part, which would be prosperity and peace, would be what the role of knowledge is, but it's impeded by interventionism.
What are your thoughts on the role of debt forgiveness in an economy? The Bible talks about the Jubilee concept of the clearing of debts, and we have some form of that, I guess, in the bankruptcy system that we have today, inspired by that a little bit. What is your thoughts on the role of debt forgiveness in terms of allowing for people of lower income to have a chance to thrive instead of being impoverished?
Well, it's interesting because the biggest debtor is the state, the individuals, they have the potential to be. In fact, basically, because the state is the big debtor, the individuals are the creditors for that debt state. And I wouldn't want. I mean, I think ultimately the forgiving of the debt means getting rid of the state because it's the debtor, and it's a burden on everyone, and I think that would be where forgiving the debt would be basically removing the state.
And what is your view on the idea of dealing with the Marxists? The thing that you hear a lot of neo-Marxists talk about today is that calculation is against Christianity. The idea of economic calculation, of judging, value and determining that, it should be worth this much versus that is inherently a bad thing, that we should have kind of elimination of property and just have something similar to the early church in Acts, where they just shared everything in common, as it said.
Well, the the thing is, what I think a good example to understand that would be what money does. It's an indirect means of exchange, and it basically brought about over time. You know, there was barter at first, and then certain commodities were useful universally, and they didn't deteriorate. Like, for instance, gold as an example. So what happens is people then migrated towards those because they could exchange for that commodity, and then that commodity could get them something else. So it's indirect exchange. And when that became kind of as it became universally adopted as a medium of exchange, then everything was in common terms. And once things in common terms, then you could calculate. You could figure out what costs and profits and where to direct your resources, because you could now calculate. So it's not a bad thing. It's just part of the progress and of an advancement of civilization, that you went from where you couldn't calculate, because if one's got one medium of exchange and someone has another medium of exchange, there's no comparability. You can't, and so the economy could only grow to a certain point. It was like relative to a modern economy, was very inefficient and couldn't provide for people. And then as that disappeared with an accepted medium of exchange, universally accepted, then that became common, and then calculation could happen, and then for instance, an entrepreneur could say, okay, I need these to give you what you would want. I have to take this kind of resource and that kind of resource and that kind of resource and combine them, and then you can have, and then we can produce what you want. But because they're all in common terms, he could actually see how to do that and bring it to the market so people could have it. Mm-hmm. So that's all a progressive thing. That's something that enables societies to develop further. Mm-hmm. So I don't think calculation is a negative thing. It's just about what happens is it's something that empowers decision making that helps people serve other people because of the common terms that they have.
Well, Bruce,
that explains.
Yeah, it makes sense. I appreciate your time, and I want people to visit your website, divineeconomytheory.com, to learn more.
Yes.
That's divineeconomytheory.com. Very good.
Thank you.
Best of luck in this work, and I will continue to follow your work. And what's the name of your book that's coming out, folks?
It's just called Divine Economy Model.
Okay, very good. And is that out yet, or when can people get that?
Well, I'm circulating the PDF and getting reviews, and then it'll be out maybe by the end of the year.
All right, I appreciate your time. Bruce Koerber, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. DivineEconomyTheory.com. Back in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well-informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Not ready to go to your favorite seafood restaurant? Get the highest quality fish for less, delivered straight to your door by Fast Fresh Seafood. Order our fresh hog snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at FastFreshSeafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. FastFreshSeafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metals. They pay interest on gold in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Hello, David Gornosky here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. You know, a lot of folks in California, they're threatening they're going to secede from the United States if President Trump is reelected. I think they're just begging for a landslide with that kind of talk. A lot of folks who are on the fence, independent politically, you know, would love to have California leave them alone in terms of their busybody arrogance. You know, these folks, and I'm not saying everybody, there's a lot of great folks in California, of course, but the fruits of their political dreams are rotten to the core, and they have a hard time keeping their hands to themselves in a lot of different ways, including the political interventions they want to make into our lives. They think they know better than everybody, and they have a brutish, barbaric approach to civil conduct, which means they want to use the state as a bludgeon to bludgeon people that think differently than them, that act differently than them, that don't want to worship the state like a lot of them do. And that's just not acceptable in a civilized society. So if they're going to keep threatening to secede, if they're Biden, the warmonger Biden that has bombed people of color all over the country, all over the world, if that's their dream ticket, then they're welcome to secede any day they want. I'd be glad to, because it'd be great to have folks that don't want to play nice with others leave us alone if they want to keep intervening and telling people lights out at 3 o'clock, living in such a third world type way because they don't know how to save. They don't know how to create wealth. They just know how to worship the state in the name of the victim. That's what Christianity has unleashed into the world. It's unleashed a concern for victims. And then you have these people who are arrogant, who think that they're God. They want to take the Christian concern for victims and twist it and mutate it into an attempt to get political power and exploit other people. So we have the latest scandal du jour, of course, is Bob Woodward, who is a political hack for the establishment. He's come out every week. They've got these sycophants that love Trump. These people on the left, they worship this man. The people on the Mick woke, the Mick resistance folks, they worship Trump's every existence. Every day they're reading a 700-page book from his aunt, a 600-page book from his niece, an 800-page book from his janitor, a 900-page book from his doctor, a 10,000-page book from Matt. I mean, these people never stop. All they care is they're obsessed with this man. I'm telling you, they're not going to know how to live without Donald Trump in the White House. These people aren't going to be able to function. Their whole existence is based on this stuff. And they've got a guy, Weekend at Bernie's at best, on the Democrat ticket, who, is having a very difficult time functioning, getting a sentence out. He's got a teleprompter for every question that people ask him. In the media, every day they've come up with a new hit piece, working hand in hand with one political party. Now, I don't care what your values are. If you're left wing, right wing, any wing, chicken wing, if you want to have a free society, you cannot tolerate having a political unification with both parties with media apparatus and culture. You just can't. You are not going to have a liberal society. You're not going to have a progressive society. You're not going to have a prosperous society. You're not going to have an equitable society, if you like that word, because you heard it from a six-figure corporate communist professor that you took a class from. If whatever words you like, you're not going to have it if you have a one-party machine that has a one-party media narrative. You just can't have it. So whatever you believe, you cannot go along with this bully, disgusting bigotry on display where, every day the media is gaslighting the public. They come out with a rumor that has no sources that are named about what Trump said about the military. Why? Because Biden was making a fool of himself. Now, how can you have a free society when the referee is rigging the game every step of the way? In this case, the referee is the press. If the press is going to rig the narrative every time, oh, look, let's cover the camera. Let's switch the camera to this view so we can rig the game so this guy can keep having a chance. You can't have a free society that way. You can't have a society that's in collusion with a permanent bureaucracy like what we have. Trump is he's going to be announcing that he's pulling troops more out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course, the deep state, which just means the permanent bureaucrats that keep running D.C. no matter who's in office, they're running scared. These are bigots. They make a killing off of killing people for no reason. They send our bravest men and women overseas for lies. And they hate it that any president comes in and actually wants to act on pulling troops out. Trump is not up to my ideology standards about what I want, right? I want no intervention. I don't want sanctions on Yemen, okay? I know that sanctions are an act of war. I disagree with him there. I don't want sanctions on Iranians. I disagree with him there because sanctions, imagine, how can you call yourself a Christian and stand in the doorway of an Iranian family getting food? That's what you're literally doing when you go along with sanctions. There's no acceptable way for a Christian to call themselves a Christian and stand in the doorway of an Iranian family trying to get food because you don't like who's running their country. And that's what you're doing when you support sanctions. So I disagree there. Okay? But he hasn't started a new war like Obama did. Obama started multiple wars, Syria, Libya, on and on. Yemen, he started that. Trying to overthrow Egypt, he started that. All these situations that we've had, the reality is the permanent Washington establishment does not want to stop occupying people of color overseas. And the Democrats are the best suited party for perpetuating that. And so the media has chosen a side, as they've done over and over again. They chose the side of lying in the service of wars. Lying in the service of wars. And so now the latest thing is Bob Woodward, who, again, is an establishment puppet. He doesn't do anything to criticize real power. He doesn't know what the Federal Reserve does. He doesn't know what interest rates do. He doesn't understand how price works. He doesn't understand how wars work. He doesn't criticize any of it. All he does is act as a PR spokesperson for the status quo. So, they've got, oh, look, it's the newest bombshell. That's all they ever do is try to create a narrative based on stopping any kind of disruption from perpetual war, perpetual fear-mongering, The headline they try to put out is the Woodward book says that former Intel chief Dan Coates believed, quote, Putin had something on Trump. What's his evidence? Well, his evidence is that he said he still questions the relationship between Trump and Putin despite the apparent absence of intelligence proof. This is in Axios.com, another establishment hack website. The New York Times' Michael Schmidt reported in his new book that former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein secretly curtailed an FBI counterintelligence probe into Trump's ties to Russia, meaning the full scope of decades of the president's personal and financial dealings has never been explored. So they're always trying to scare the public, and they count on the fact that the public is low information because they're too busy trying to keep up with the Joneses with consumer credit debt, new gadgets and new gizmos, new consumeristic habits to form, new distractions to perpetuate, that they don't have the ability to say, wait a second, we don't need war, we don't need to saber rattle with Russia. The establishment's losing the narrative. They have almost nearly 99% control of the narrative in the major media. And they're still losing. That's how sorry they are. How sorry can you be when you got all the refs rigged for one side of the narrative, which is more war, more government, more curtailment of our personal liberties, more incarceration. Kamala Harris laughs as she locks up every person she can, and they think that we can't see what they're doing. They think that they're still playing the old script from the 1950s when they had 3 major TV channels. That's it. They don't realize that we see through their garbage, we see through their lies, and their era is coming to an end. It's over. And this is the future, a neighbor's choice, the tip of the spear for a media conversation based on innovation and win-win solutions. I'm David Gronowski. We'll be back in just a moment. Godspeed.